This program is brought to you by SMC Infrastructure, building a better world.
Pa ako. Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. We're moving to the next stage of the pandemic. As the world resets to the new normal, we find ourselves seeking the right balance between health and livelihood, constantly adjusting the boundaries between liberty and responsibility. Here are tonight's news. First, dozens of people died as the fiercest cyclone to hit parts of Bangladesh and eastern India this century sent trees flying and flattened houses, with millions crammed into shelters despite the risk of coronavirus. Take a look. Millions were left without power after Cyclone Amphan, packing winds of around 150 kilometers per hour, carried away electricity pylons, walls, and roofs, according to officials, as they began to assess the damage. Bangladeshi officials said at least 10 people had died, including a 5-year-old boy and a 75-year-old man, both hit by falling trees, and a cyclone emergency volunteer who also drowned among the dead. Officials said they were waiting for reports from the Sundarbans, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, famed for its mangrove forest and population of endangered Bengal tigers, which bore the brunt of the storm. Cyclones are an annual and a growing hazard along the Bay of Bengal coast, claiming the lives of hundreds of thousands of people in recent decades. But in recent years, despite an increase in their frequency, blamed partly on climate change, improved warning systems have enabled authorities to be much better prepared. The World Health Organization said it had registered a new daily record number of COVID-19 cases as it quickly neared the tragic milestone, quote, tragic milestone of 5 million total infections. Take a look.
We still have a long way to go in this pandemic. In the last 24 hours, there have been 106,000 cases reported to WHO, the most in a single day since the outbreak began. Almost 2/3 of these cases were reported in just 4 countries. But in good news, it has been particularly impressive to see how countries like the Republic of Korea have built on their experience of MERS to quickly implement a comprehensive strategy to find, isolate, test and care for every case and trace every contact. This was critical to the Republic of Korea, curtailing the first wave and now quickly identifying and containing new outbreaks. However, we're very concerned about the rising numbers of cases in low and middle-income countries.
The Geneva-based WHO's coronavirus disease dashboard said that on Tuesday, 106,662 confirmed cases had been reported to the agency from around the world, and the new figures come after states around the world have been dramatically ramping up their testing programs as well. And the pandemic is still unfolding. More than 4.9 million cases of COVID-19 have been registered in total since the outbreak first emerged in China last December. That is according to a tally from official sources compiled by AFP. More than 325,000 people have lost their lives according to the AFP tally. The WHO's annual gathering of member states agreed to an independent probe into the UN agency's coronavirus response amid mounting U.S. criticism over its handling of the pandemic. President Trump made public later Tuesday a letter he sent to Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus saying that if the WHO didn't commit to major substantive improvements within 30 days, he would permanently freeze funding to the organization and reconsider U.S. membership. Let's listen in.
That, but there definitely, I mean, there is a distracting voice. I don't know, I mean, how disturbed you are by, letter from U.S. President Trump, and are you going to respond to that kind of ultimatum, or if yes, or when, or if you're just going to ignore that? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. As you rightly said, there was a lot of support and vote of confidence. And on the letter, we have, of course, received the letter and we're looking into it. Thank you so much.
My question, similar question, but in more detail. I mean, the President of the United States has given you 30 days to improve, he says, although I know he hasn't said what improvements he wants, or he will cut US funding completely. Just what are you going to do? Simply.
So the answer is simply, we have received the letter and we're looking into it. Thank you again.
The United States is the biggest contributor to the WHO's budget and has already suspended funding, accusing the organization of severely mismanaging and covering up the spread of the virus. Meanwhile, President Trump made the surprise announcement that he is taking hydroxychloroquine last Monday. It's an anti-malaria drug that his own government experts say is not suitable for fighting the novel coronavirus. And Brazil's health ministry also recommended Wednesday using chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine to treat even mild cases of COVID-19. Treatments President Jair Bolsonaro has pushed for, despite the lack of conclusive evidence of their effectiveness. Now, the WHO's Dr. Michael Ryan stressed that there are no shortcuts on the acceleration of the timeline of COVID-19 medicines and vaccine and its safety parameters. Take a look.
At this stage, hydroxychloroquine, norchloroquine have been as yet found to be effective in the treatment of COVID-19 or in the prophylaxis against coming down with the disease. In fact, the opposite in that warnings have been issued by many authorities regarding the potential side effects of the drug, and many countries have limited its use to that of clinical trials or during clinical trials or under the supervision of clinicians in a hospital setting. That's specifically for COVID-19 because of a number of potential side effects that have occurred and could occur. There are things we can do faster and better. There are things we can do in parallel, but there are no shortcuts on safety. There are no shortcuts on efficacy. It's really, really important that when we say we wish to go faster, we wish to be as efficient as possible, but still complete every step that's necessary in delivering a safe and efficacious vaccine. We need to track the infection, the virus itself, as it spreads around the world. We need to track its transmission dynamics to ensure that we understand how it's transmitting, where it's transmitting. We need to track the genetic sequences of the virus to ensure that the virus is not evolving in a way that's negative. Viruses can evolve in two ways. They can evolve positively in becoming less pathogenic, and they can evolve negatively in becoming more virulent or pathogenic. And we also have to track the clinical syndrome to be able to check whether any changes in the virus are resulting in any differences in the clinical attack rate or clinical fatality or clinical syndromes that are presenting.
Now, the Food and Drug Administration issued a warning last month that hydroxychloroquine shouldn't be taken outside of a hospital or clinical trial because of the risk of severe heart rhythm problems. Meanwhile, White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany defended President Trump's comments that some frontline workers were taking the drug, citing various studies. She connected the ingestion of hydroxychloroquine to the right to try legislation President Trump signed in 2018 that allows terminally ill patients access to experimental medical treatments not yet approved by the FDA. Take a look.
As a prophylactic?
Well, there is at Henry Ford Hospital is doing a study on this now where 3,000 frontline workers will be taking hydroxychloroquine to look at its use as a prophylaxis. I believe there's a few hundred or 190 workers in Tampa General Hospital. So this is being used by some. And
there are studies, though, there are trials that are in their early phases. Do you have any evidence that thousands of frontline workers are currently using it because they believe it actually will prevent them from getting COVID-19?
The FDA has approved this for off-label use. You know, this president's a big believer in right-to-try legislation. People who are on their last... There are several studies that have been brought that the president has actually mentioned that I'd refer you to. There was one out of France, a French study involving more than 1,000 patients that found that the vast majority had, quote, good clinical outcomes, and by the vast majority, that was more than 90%. There was an Italian study of more than 65,000 patients that demonstrated only 20 tested positive of those who were taking it prophylactically, and a South Korea study as well. So there are several studies, and if you're someone out there and this is a safe drug to use and your doctor, importantly to underscore that, and your doctor prescribes it for your use as a prophylaxis or after coming into contact with COVID, then it's something you should take if it's prescribed by the doctor and that's your personal medical choice. Yeah.
The anti-malarial drug hydroxychloroquine has shown mixed results against the coronavirus in early studies. But a new paper out of New York suggests combining it with the dietary supplement zinc sulfate could create a more effective treatment. Records of about 900 COVID-19 patients were reviewed in the analysis, with roughly half given zinc sulfate along with hydroxychloroquine and the antibiotic azithromycin. The other half only received hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin. Those receiving the triple drug combination had a 1.5 times greater likelihood of recovering enough to be discharged and were 44% less likely to die compared to the double drug combination. It didn't, however, change the average time patients spent in hospital, which is 6 days, the time they spent on the ventilator, 5 days, or the total amount of oxygen required. Hydroxychloroquine has been proposed as a treatment against the SARS-CoV-2 virus because it has antiviral properties that have been proven in lab settings but not in people. It interferes with the virus' ability to enter the cells and also seems to block them from replicating once they are already inside. Zinc itself has antiviral properties, and past research has suggested it may reduce the time people suffer from common colds. Senior investigator and infectious disease specialist Joseph Rahimian said that it may be that when used to treat coronavirus patients, it is the zinc that does the heavy lifting and is the primary substance attacking the pathogen. He also said hydroxychloroquine, on the other hand, acts as an agent that transports the zinc into cells, increasing its efficacy. However, he also cautioned that a controlled experiment would be needed to prove the benefits beyond doubt. The research by the NYU Grossman School of Medicine was posted on a medical preprint site last Monday, meaning it hasn't yet been peer-reviewed. Meanwhile, China offered a low-key rebuttal to United States President Donald Trump's accusation of mass killing on Thursday, with a foreign ministry official insisting the country did its best to protect lives during the pandemic. Tensions between the United States and China have been on the rise as the deadly coronavirus, which first surfaced in the central Chinese city of Wuhan, ravaged the global economy. Take a look.
在抗击疫情的过程中，中国政府始终本着公开、透明、负责任的态度。我们坚持用事实说话，摆的是事实，讲的是道理。谁在全力以赴维护人民生命健康，尽己所能推动国际抗疫合作，相信公道自在人心，世人看得清楚。
Beijing's latest response came a day after President Trump blamed China for mass worldwide killing in a tweet, which also referred to an unidentified wacko, quote, wacko. Mr. Zhao reiterated China's stance that it has always had an open, transparent, and responsible attitude as it battled the pandemic. He also added the country has been doing its best to promote international cooperation against the pathogen. China has come under fire for its initial response over the outbreak, which has since claimed over 325,000 lives around the globe And as the virus continued its worldwide march, governments, including the U.S. and Australia, called for an investigation into its origins, with U.S. leaders pushing a theory that the pathogen had leaked from a Chinese maximum security laboratory. China has since said it supports a comprehensive evaluation of the global response to the pandemic after it has been brought under control. And Malacanang on Thursday said the Philippines is still on the first wave of coronavirus disease infection, stressing Health Secretary Francisco Duque's interpretation of waves simply differed from other experts. Presidential spokesperson Hydroxychloroquine made this remark after some cabinet members contradicted the Health Secretary's statement, saying the country is now experiencing a second wave of COVID-19 infection. Take a look.
Confused about this.
Ay, pasensya na po kayo, no, mga kababayan. Pero nagsalita po ang Presidente at pininindigan po natin ang sinabi ng Presidente, kinakailangan gumawa pa rin tayo ng mga hakbang upang maiwasan ang second wave. Nagpapaumanhin po kami kung kayo'y naalarma, pero ang katunayan po, ang siyensya naman po, at saka importante yung pagbasa sa mga waves para alam natin ang gagawin na response. Whether be it a wavelet or a first wave, ang katunayan naman po, ang importante, maiwasan natin ang second wave na mas maraming kasong magkakasakit. Dahil kung titignan po natin ang kasaysayan, yung Spanish flu pandemic, na yan po yung huling pandemic na sumalanta sa buong planeta, mas malaki po, mas marami pong namatay dun sa second wave. Ingatan po natin yan, stay home, practice social distancing, wear your mask, and observe proper hygiene.
Sinabi po ni Secretary Duque na hindi raw po malayo magkaroon ng third wave ng coronavirus disease 2019 kapag isinailalim sa general community quarantine ang Metro Manila.
I think malinaw na po yan, no? Dahil wavelet, na hindi naman dapat bilanging wave yung tatlong kaso ng mga Chino, ang sinasabi ni Secretary Duque ay kapareho rin ang sinasabi ng Presidente. Kinakailangan gumawa ng mahakbang para maiwasan ang pagdating ng second wave. No? Kaya nga po, naka-MECQ pa rin ang Metro Manila. At hindi naman po tayo magmamadali para ma-relief ito kung hindi tayo sigurado na ang number one, ang kurbada ay nafa-flatten. At number two, sapat po ang ating kakayahan na magbigay ng critical care.
In a hybrid Senate hearing last Wednesday, Secretary Duque disclosed that the Philippines is actually on the second wave of the COVID-19 outbreak, citing epidemiology experts. Epidemiology expert John Wong, in a televised press briefing with the Department of Health, said that the first COVID-19 wave in the country happened in late January when the Philippines recorded its first 3 confirmed cases. The second wave of the COVID-19 infection in the country peaked at the end of March, according to Wong, who is also part of the government task force on COVID-19 sub-technical working group on data and analytics. However, a number of cabinet members, including Executive Secretary Salvador Medaldea and Interior Secretary Eduardo Año, among others, disputed Secretary Duque's claim. Meanwhile, Greek tourism operators expect a 70% drop in arrivals this year. The tourism industry of Greece is badly hit by the coronavirus outbreak. We have an update coming in from Marilu Francisco from our European Bureau. Hello, Marilu.
Oh, hi, Alma.
Hi, good evening.
Hi. Good evening.
Manila.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. How are you doing? And happy birthday, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I'm glad to be with you and to come up with what's happening in Greece at the moment. Mm-hmm. You're right. With tourism on lockdown, Greece is severely affected. However, there is a change. As you know, the months of April through September are the peak season for tourism in Europe. And Greece is one of the most favorite destinations, not just by travelers, but also by archaeologists, historians, and even students and teachers. Now, Greece is doing its very best to salvage the rest of the season this year amidst COVID-19 for their economic recovery. Here's the good news. On June 15, the tourism season will officially begin in Greece. Initial foreign travelers will be coming from selected 19 countries that have been selected by Greece due to their good record of infection and mortality rates. However, there's only one landing place, and that is Athens International Airport, beginning June 15. But on July 1st, all airports will be open and ready to welcome international visitors. By the way, also on June 15, museums will be open. So in time for the arrival of foreign travelers for the first time after the 2 months lockdown. There will be no prior COVID-19 test and no 14-day quarantine upon arrival. However, whenever required, the travelers will be subjected to sample tests, and they must abide by all health protocols established and being implemented throughout Greece. This tourism opening for the year 2020 in Greece was announced by the Prime Minister, Kyriakos Mitsotakis, in a televised address yesterday. And this is part of the government plan to support the country's economy, employment, and tourism in this COVID-19 era. Health protection protocols are in place. For example, as detailed by the Ministry of Tourism, travelers must wear face masks on flights to Greece, maintain social distancing, and then also at the hotels where these travelers will be staying, there is also healthcare infrastructure in place. For example, hotel doctors will be provided, and an efficient transport system is also in place, just in case there is a suspected case or people might want to request for transportation to the hospital. It is there. And here's a good prelude to the opening of tourism in Greece. And you must have seen the report already just last Monday, May 18, the reopening of Acropolis of Athens and other 200 archaeological sites. Well, the name of this Acropolis, actually, to be precise, is Acropolis of Athens, because there are many Acropolises in Greece, but the most famous one is the one in Athens. Greece has over 500 major and minor archaeological sites. Well, Acropolis, with its famous structure, the Parthenon, is one of the favorites. And this was actually the birthplace or the site of the height of the classical period of Greece, and that was during the time of their leader Pericles. And as we know, the architecture introduced by the Greeks is up to now part of what is being followed in modern architecture. If you remember the three orders, the so-called Greek orders or styles of architecture, the use of columns, we have the terms Doric, Ionic, Corinthian. And also, it is in the Acropolis where democracy was born. At the moment, the current numbers, COVID-19 numbers in Greece, so far infected 2,850 people in Greece. Okay, that's the number of cases, and that's 166 now, so it's less than 200, and recovered so far, it's 1,374. So we're just keeping our fingers crossed, and we hope that Greece will establish another success in this time of COVID-19. This could be a very good model and example for other countries, showing the benefits of strictly adhering to health protocols like social distancing, wearing masks, and all these things.
Okay,
so
yeah. I wish we could see the Acropolis pictures that you sent. That was a lot of pictures. But anyways, so how is the government planning to help the tourism businesses. Yes.
Yes. Well, with the opening of tourism, there are already ramifications. As we know, the different sectors involved when we say tourism, you have the transportation, you have by sea, by water, land, and by air. So those are already 3 areas. And then you have the hotels, hospitality businesses, the catering businesses, and all these people, the tour guides. So, and they were expecting to generate really a big percentage. You know, Greece actually has 18 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, and that's why Greece remains to be a strong magnet for travelers. And these for anyone who are looking for traces of ancient civilization, Greece is something for you. And tourism is a major element of economic activity in Greece. Yeah. So according to some statistics, the 2018 Greek travel and tourism sector grew at a rate of 6.9%. That means more than 3.5 times the pace of its bigger economy. And then another number from the World Travel and Tourism Council, tourism in Greece represents 20.6% of the country's gross domestic product, meaning that 1 in every 5 euros spent in Greece last year came from travel and tourism, worth 37.5 billion euros, or $44.6 billion. And from the Institute of Greek Tourism Companies, or INSET, for the year 2018 alone, 90% of the tourism revenue generated comes from abroad, so from international travelers. And so they're really hoping that tourism in Greece will really boom once again. So they're doing their very best to keep those health protocols in place. And they're really quite strict at the moment. And oh yes, go ahead.
Go ahead, Malu.
Yeah. And this plan also includes travel tax cuts. You know, the value-added tax here in Europe, there is the road travel tax and all that. There is a reduced travel tax from 24%. They're cutting it down to 13% travel tax. So it's really a good incentive. By the way, the money that will be used by Greece to boost its tourism is coming from the SURE program of the European Union. And Greece, being a member of the European Union, is free to apply for the loan. And actually, they're eyeing on more than 1.5 billion euros, and that will be used for this recovery plan.
All right, thank you very much, Malu, for that report, and I hope to see more of your, I really enjoyed the pictures that you sent, though, although we didn't see it here. But thank you so much for that report, and keep the updates coming from Europe. Thank you very much, and happy birthday.
Oh, thank you, Marilu Francisco, over here in the Netherlands, and we live in interesting times.
All right, Prime Minister Boris Johnson vowed the new UK virus tracing strategy will be ready by June. Joining us live from the United Kingdom, JL Bautista.
Hi, Alma. Good evening.
Hello, JL. Good evening. What are your updates for us? Yes.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said the country will have 25,000 virus tracing staff recruited by June so that the country can make progress in its strategy to keep easing the nationwide lockdown. In a testy Prime Minister's questions exchange with Labour leader Keir Starmer, in which Health Secretary Matt Hancock was threatened with expulsion from the chamber for interjecting, Boris Johnson promises that the UK will have a coronavirus track and trace system up and running by June the 1st. The government is under pressure to get the recruits in place to operate alongside a smartphone tracing app that it hopes will allow large-scale testing and tracing tactics to start next month. Britain's official coronavirus death toll has reached at least 41,000, with almost 10,000 deaths in care homes in England and Wales alone, according to an update from the Office for National Statistics released on Tuesday. The government's official rolling count of fatalities, which is less comprehensive as it only includes people who tested positive for COVID-19, stands at 35,704, with 363 more added to Wednesday. By both measures, the figures are the highest in Europe and second only to the United States in the global rankings. The Prime Minister has been criticized for largely abandoning a testing and tracing strategy on March 12th as the virus took hold. And a cross-party parliamentary committee on Tuesday said it was clear a lack of capacity-determined government strategy and the testing regime had been inadequate in the early stages. Johnson introduced a nationwide lockdown in late March, which is now being partially eased in England but maintained in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. The British leader hopes some children will be able to return to primary schools from June the 1st. And the government has made the army of contact tracers a key part of the readopted approach to slowing the spread of the virus, alongside wider community testing and the smartphone app. The app is developed by the state-run National Health Service, NHS, has been undergoing trials this month before a wider rollout. No firm date has yet been given for its full implementation, and among those who have died in the outbreak are 181 staff in the NHS and 131 in the social care sector. Many are overseas nationals, and the government was criticized for not extending a bereavement scheme, giving their families indefinite leave to remain to support staff such as cleaners and porters. But the Interior Ministry on Wednesday announced the scheme would be extended in recognition of their tireless dedication and selflessness. Home Secretary Priti Patel said it will be effective immediately and retrospectively. Alma?
So do you know of any information on how UK plans to open the or revive the economy? Are there any government schemes to help businesses get back on their feet?
Yes, Alma, of course. As we all know, beginning last week, workers in the manufacturing and construction sectors were already allowed to return to work. The housing market started to open up with people allowed now to sell their homes, view properties, and move. On the side of those who are self-employed whose businesses were impacted by the coronavirus can receive support under the Self-Employed Income Support Scheme. The government introduced this in March, which is aimed at giving support to them in the same way as the scheme for furloughed employees. The grants are worked out as 80% of monthly profit. This is averaged out over a period of up to 3 years and capped at £7,500 or $9,100. There were more than 2 million people who have applied for government grants, according to BBC News, with £6 billion worth of claims made so far, or just over $7.3 billion. However, not all self-employed can benefit from this. Businesses which started early April last year and those who pay themselves just with dividends from a limited company are not eligible. The Self-Employed Income Support Scheme was described by Chancellor Rishi Sunak as one of the most generous schemes anywhere in the world. Back to you, Alma.
All right, thank you very much, JL. Keep safe, stay healthy, and keep the updates coming from the United Kingdom. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Alma. You too. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, this is JL Bautista, and we live in interesting times.
Belgium's coronavirus cases continue to decline, and let's hear more update about its exit plan and recovery plans. Kate Rebibis joins us from Leuven, Belgium. Hello, Kate, how are you doing?
Hi, Alma, how are you?
I'm good, thank you for asking.
Okay, so for the update for Belgium, there are now 55,983 confirmed cases, wherein 14,847 have recovered and 9,150 deaths. As of the 20th of May, government officials confirmed that people can visit their second homes who are either owners or tenants for a duration of at least 1 year. And Belgians who have second homes are mainly at the coast or in Ardennes. Today is a holiday in Belgium, and because of that, postal services and banks will not operate. Retail shops are closed but open on Friday and Saturday again. Smaller grocery branches are open, and restaurants, bars, and cafes are closed until the 8th of June. But for example, here in Leuven, some cafes are open, but only for takeout due to the restrictions. But most delivery and takeaway restaurants will be open. Although museums could reopen, some have chosen to delay their reopening. Due to the very warm weather, parks are open, but only for exercising. Picnicking or sunbathing is still prohibited. Ban evictions that was put up since the 17th of March could be extended until the 31st of August. Charleroi Airport will resume its flights in June. Bookings will be done online, face masks will be mandatory, and maintaining social distancing. At the entrance of the airport, tents will be set up for pre-control and temperatures will be taken by the Belgian Red Cross. Ryanair, who is one of the main companies to use this airport, already announced that they will be resuming their flights on the 1st of July, not only in Charleroi Airport, but also in Brussels Airport. Due to the worries for a potential second wave of coronavirus, Geert Meerfroy, president of the Belgian Society of Intensive Care Medicine, claims there is no certainty for that due to the continuous decline. Focus on the total number of cases and on the number of new hospitalizations, he said. Most patients in intensive care are mostly first-wave patients. Belgian government has also made sure to distribute masks to every municipality. Brussels has distributed already their first batch of 800,000 masks on the 20th of May. And this was distributed among municipal authorities, Brussels regional officials, and staff of the municipal administrations. They also want to provide for every citizen of over 3 years and will be distributed over the following weeks. While some companies have been experiencing a rough time, e-commerce has been booming during the crisis, but so does the workload of post staffs. Thus, they are demanding to ease staff by hiring more workers, including temporary interim contracts. And teleworking will be made a normal component of the regular working week even after the pandemic, because this proves better balance between work and leisure. And after the summer, employees will be allowed to work 2 to 3 times a week at home.
So I also heard or read in a report that thousands of employees may be dismissed from the jobs as a result of the pandemic.
Yes, that's right. Belgian companies plan to lay off nearly 200,000 employees. And there have also been surveys revealing that roughly 7% of all companies are likely to go bankrupt. 28% for arts and entertainment industries and 19% for the restaurant and hospitality industries fear to go bankrupt according to the surveys. For Belgium, several measures were taken by both the federal and regional governments to help businesses. These measures are mostly all tax related and are more like benefits for the businesses, such as tax relief measure, postponement of taxes, administrative flexibility, incentive premiums for companies to keep employees, extensions of payment obligations, pay employees up to 220-hour overtime tax-free during the period between the 1st of April and 30th of June, and increase unemployment benefits. As for the Flemish region, or the region here in Belgium where they speak Dutch, they will increase the amount that small businesses can loan from family and or friend, or their so-called the win-win lening or the win-win loan. Government is also willing to pay 40% back of the remaining outstanding capital if the businesses go bankrupt. And traders will also be allowed to loan just to pay for their rent. As for service check companies, the government also plan to increase the given subsidies.
All right. Thank you very much, Kate. Take care and stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Take care too. Reporting from Leuven, Belgium, I am Kate Rubilis. We live in interesting times.
Indeed. Global infections from the novel coronavirus surpassed 5 million on Thursday as the pandemic played out unevenly across the planet, with China eager to declare a victory, Europe tentatively emerging from its shell, and deaths still rising in hotspots in Latin America. The grim milestone is still only a fraction of the true number of infections from a virus that has claimed more than 328,000 lives in its whirl around the globe, according to an AFP tally of official sources. And while many hard-hit European countries have significantly curbed the rise of cases, Latin America has been in the grip of an infection surge. Brazil, as you can see here, is leading the pack, logging the third highest number of cases in the world after the US and Russia. Peru, Mexico, and Chile have also seen steady increases in infections. But Brazil's far-right President Jair Bolsonaro continues to scorn experts' advice on lockdown measures, pressing regional governors to end stay-at-home measures. And like US President Trump, he has promoted the use of anti-malaria drugs against the virus, despite studies showing they have no benefit and could have dangerous side effects. And while Cyclone Amphan poses an immense threat to life in eastern and northeastern states of India, the novel coronavirus has continued to claim lives across India, with 140 new COVID-19 deaths registered in the last 24 hours. India's overall death toll has risen to 3,303 on Wednesday, May 20, according to the Health Ministry. The country also has recorded 5,611 new cases in the past 24 hours, which took the countrywide case tally up to 106,750. Among these cases, 61,149 remain active, while 42,298 individuals have successfully recovered from the disease. At present, the state of Maharashtra houses the highest number of cases at 37,136, followed by Tamil Nadu and Gujarat. We'll take a short break. Eagle News will be right back.
The successful development of TPLEX, or Tarlac-Pangasinan-La Union Expressway in 2009, a 4-lane toll road that extends from Tarlac City to Rosario, La Union, with an additional approved extension of 56 kilometers all the way to San Juan, La Union. This is expected to reduce travel time to Baguio and other provinces in northern Luzon. Realizing the vision of creating a better world for Filipinos fueled the team's focus.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
The Russian army is preparing a camp to quarantine workers at a huge gold mine. That and more from EBC Moscow Bureau's Emmy Coloma. Hello, Emmy. Good evening, Emmy. Can you hear me? There you go. Okay, you have to unmute your audio. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Still no sound. Okay, is she still there, Emmy? Okay. Hello, Emmy, are you still there? Do we go to the next item? Okay, first, a yellow robot dog called Spot, which found fame online for dancing to hit song Uptown Funk, has been deployed to patrol the Singapore park and ensure people observe social distancing. Take a look.
Please stand at least 1 meter apart. Thank you.
I think it's quite like the Black Mirror kind of thing. Like we're always under surveillance at all times. But
I think it's pretty cool. It gives a sense that someone is just looking around just to make sure that the people around are safe. Yeah.
The high-tech hound is remote controlled and can clamber easily over all types of terrain, which its creators say means it can go where wheeled robots cannot. As it trots through the park, Spot, who has the same name as the popular fictional puppy, uses cameras to estimate the number of visitors, and the robot blasts out a message to ensure joggers and walkers keep their distance to limit the spread of the coronavirus. For your own safety and for those around you, please stand at least 1 meter apart. Thank you. Spot, which is being trialed over a 3-kilometer stretch of the park, also has sensors to ensure it doesn't bump into people. Developed by U.S. company Boston Dynamics, Spot is best known for a video where the robot showed off its moves by bopping to Mark Ronson hit Uptown Funk, and which has been viewed over 6.8 million times on YouTube. On a recent outing, curious onlookers stopped to watch Spot as the four-legged invention passed by and snapped pictures on their phones. Singapore authorities have played down privacy concerns, saying Spot's cameras cannot track or recognize specific individuals and no personal data will be collected. The city-state has reported over 29,000 virus cases, mostly among migrant workers living in dormitories, and 22 deaths. A state of emergency has been lifted in some Japanese cities. Dennis Liu joins us live from Japan. Hello, Dennis.
Hello, Alma. Good evening to you and to all our televiewers. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe lifted a state of emergency in several big cities in Western Japan and hinted that the measure would be removed nationwide as early as next week. The Tokyo metropolitan area and Hokkaido in northern Japan will remain under the state of emergency, but Abe said they may see it lifted as early as Monday, after a review by health experts. A total of 42 out of the country's 47 prefectures are now out of the coronavirus emergency, but the remaining 5, Tokyo, Chiba, Kanagawa, Saitama, and Hokkaido, make up about a third of the Japanese economy. An advisory panel gave the go-ahead to the government move after weighing criteria: the number of new reported cases over 1 week, the availability of medical care, and the capacity to provide virus tests and monitor the spread of the virus. In the Tokyo area and Hokkaido, the number of infections has been falling, and the situation faced by hospitals has been improving, Abe said. But he said people in these areas to avoid non-essential outings and travel across prefectural borders. Abe faces the task of sustaining the downward trend in new cases while allowing more social and economic activities to resume as the Japanese economy has slipped into a recession. Alma.
Yes. So how is the what do you call this? How is Japan planning to revive the economy?
Yes, Alma. The government is compiling a second extra budget for the current fiscal year to boost support for struggling households and businesses. Even before Abe's lifting of the emergency, Osaka Governor Hirofumi Yoshimura eased business closure requests for some facilities such as department stores and movie theaters. The government plans to continue asking people to avoid confined and crowded places and close contact with others to lower the risk of the transmission. Compliance with the measures has been voluntary as the country has not employed the hard lockdown steps seen in Europe and the United States. In Japan, The government can't use policy or military to enforce a lockdown. It can only ask, and in some cases beg, businesses to close. That's in part because the country's constitution, written after the Second World War, with the help of the Americas, has strict protections for civil liberties. Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Dennis, for your updates. Keep them coming. We're excited to get updates from Japan. Thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much, Alma. Reporting from Tokyo, Japan, this is Dennis Liu. We live in interesting times.
A father and son suspected of helping fugitive former Nissan chief Carlos Ghosn flee Japan in December were arrested on Wednesday in the United States, according to justice officials and court documents. Michael Taylor, 59, a former U.S. Special Forces member turned security contractor, and his son Peter Taylor, 27, were named in a Japanese arrest warrant seeking their extradition. And they've been ordered to appear by video conference at 19:30 GMT Wednesday, local time, before a U.S. federal judge in Massachusetts, according to the court filing. The two pose a flight risk and must remain in detention as the U.S. awaits a formal extradition request from Japan, prosecutors said in a filing with the U.S. District Court in Massachusetts. U.S. attorneys also wrote Peter Taylor is an exceptionally high flight risk, and that fact alone requires his detention. A Department of Justice official said the Taylors were arrested early Wednesday in Harvard, Massachusetts. The younger Taylor was preparing to travel to Lebanon, where Ghosn fled after sneaking out of Japan. The U.S. and Japan have an extradition treaty, but Lebanon and Japan do not. The Taylors and a Lebanese man named George Antoine Zayak are accused by Japan of helping Ghosn flee the island nation on December 29. Ghosn was out on bail awaiting trial for alleged financial crimes when he made the audacious escape. Okay, the Russian army is preparing a camp to quarantine workers at a huge Siberian gold mine. That and more from our EBC Moscow bureaus, Emmy Coloma. Hello, Emmy.
Hello, Alma. Good evening there.
Good evening from Manila. I'm so relieved to hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I am. Yes, I can. I mean, yes. Go ahead, Emmy.
Okay, here's the update. The Russian army has prepared a camp to quarantine workers at a huge Siberian gold mine, the Defense Ministry said Thursday, after hundreds of employees tested positive for the coronavirus. Isolation facilities have been set up for employees at the Olympiada mine and processing plant in Krasnoyarsk, Russia's largest gold mining operation, the ministry said in a statement. Nearly 900 workers tested positive for the coronavirus at the facility in preliminary checks. Pavel Grashev, general director of the Polius Group, which operates the mine, said on Monday. He said that around 400 of those workers were then confirmed by health officials to have the infection. The mine employs some 6,000 in total. Colonel Dmitry Pyatunin of the Central Military District said in the statement that the military had set up medical facilities and tents to treat and isolate up to 2,000 people at the site. Russia has recorded 317,554 total coronavirus infections, including 2,821 in the Krasnoyarsk region, with 3,000 deaths nationwide. While Russia has the second highest number of confirmed cases after the United States, officials say the situation is stabilizing and the mortality rate is low, so have been allowing industrial workers in many parts of the country to work. Meanwhile, according to a poll conducted by the Super Job recruitment website obtained by TASS, the vast majority of Russians, 86%, believe they do not need the aid of psychologists over the possible consequences of self-isolation due to the pandemic, Only 7% they would like to consult with a psychologist. The poll also said the majority of employers also believe that such consultations are not needed. 82%, while 9% of business representatives are certain that talking with a specialist is required. The poll took place between May 15 and May 19 in all regions of Russia, encompassing 500 Russian recruitment companies and 1,600 Russians above 18. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much for your update, Emmy. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Reporting from Moscow, Russia. This is Emmy Kolama. We live in an interesting time.
With the coronavirus pandemic in Australia, many have either lost their jobs, affected some overseas Filipino students as well. There's a group there called Adopt a Philo Student in Australia, and they're coming to the rescue of Filipino students who do not have any family support or are needing assistance. Carla Cruz reports from Australia. Hello, Carla.
Australia is a sought-after destination for those wanting to study abroad. Last year, there were over 700,000 international students enrolled nationally. Yet since the COVID-19 crisis hit, many international students still studying in the country are struggling to meet even basic needs like food or clothing. Fortunately, there are some organizations in the community they can turn to for support during this pandemic. One of these Good Samaritan groups is Adopt a Philo Student in Aussie. Their focus? To provide assistance for overseas Filipino students studying in Australia. Edith Gavaliero is one of its members who joined the group after hearing about the organization through her business network.
So it's a group where, someone who wants to sponsor a student, okay, and sponsoring meaning wants to share either it's monetary or groceries or anything, to students who are here in Sydney who lost their jobs or things like that affected by the COVID, crisis. So I got invited inside the group, so I joined. And then inside the group, I saw that some of the students that I knew from my past, exposure to one of my businesses were inside. So I messaged them and told them that I'll be willing to sponsor them anyway. So
from what started as a small group of concerned citizens with a common goal to help their fellow kababayans, has now grown into a national network.
You can see that from the post alone when you are inside the group that there are so many people and they're willing to help. Okay, so that again is a very good, show of, how philos are naturally so giving, okay, especially in terms of crisis like this. Okay, so it's really a good thing to have that kind of group, okay, so that's open, open to help people, especially students here in Australia.
And if you'd like to get involved or know an overseas Filipino student who could use their help, the best way is to join their Facebook page.
Thank you, Ate Elma and Chris family.
The work of this group and other acts of kindness shown during this pandemic is truly inspiring. It reminds us that even small gestures like buying groceries or donating winter clothes can have a massive impact on the people receiving them. Reporting from Sydney, Australia, I'm Carla Cruz, and we live in interesting times.
Thank you, Carla. Before we close, we'll leave you with a word of hope. At the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. See you again tomorrow evening. Good night. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.
This program was brought to you by SMC Infrastructure, building a better world.